Hello, welcome back. This is the beginning, the first part of 5 of my sort of writing tips and how to enter into making a story. This will probably be chaotic, probably be all over the place. I have a few notes here for me to look at, but I will do my best to try to keep on the straight and narrow. So, we're going to start with part 1, tip number 1 on how to begin writing a story if you are trying to write one, which anyone can do, and I will show you. So, part 1, think. It's that simple. I don't just mean thinking normally. You have to think in a slightly different way than you're normally used to. Taking inspiration is probably the easiest way to fulfill this tip, to fulfill this sort of step of writing. You must allow yourself to establish ideas, right? And my most encouraged way to do this, and I do this a lot, I use music or film or other books or other things to take inspiration from, right? And then you take these inspirations and you sort of let them brew in your mind for a little bit, right? Because the beautiful thing about art and media is that it can be interpreted in any way, right? Anybody can interpret any song, any movie, all the messages that they portray. Sure, there may be some that the author intended, but the audience will inevitably take away what they want to take away. With that, you take away what your inspiration is. It's a different thing, right? So, for example, we all have those little songs maybe that are super pumped up, and maybe we think of like two characters fighting each other while they're doing it. Sounds a little silly. All of them are going to sound silly out of context. But when you build a story around it, it becomes a lot more interesting and becomes a lot easier to see how you can come up with these ideas. So, for an example, for me, Fair to Midland is a band that I listen to, and I pull from music a lot as inspiration. Fair to Midland has a song called Whiskey and Ritalin, and during that song, I imagined sort of a fight scene between two characters. Right? It's very high paced. It's very loud and explosive, and it has different scenes of like high and low of like how a fight would go. And I just sort of think of that as I hear that song. I'm like, huh, this would be like a good song just to have in the background of a fight. And you kind of imagine how the fight goes as the song goes on. So that's just one example. Pulling inspiration and making a scene out of it. So here, I'll give you an example of making a character. Another band that I like to listen to is Tally Hall, and you'll see my inspirations for them is everywhere. But one of their biggest songs is called Ruler of Everything, and it's about time. And as you might know, one of my characters is Time, even named after them in respect to the band. I come up with these sort of ideas, right? A few ideas for like rough characters, a few scenes maybe in the back of my mind of like a fight or maybe a confrontation between some things, or maybe it's a calmer song and it ends up being a more, soothing moment or a more important moment for building character. So you come up with these things in your mind randomly. But instead of dismissing them or just being like, hey, it's kind of a cool thing, you need to start to think about those scenes, about those ideas. Because they aren't just random anymore if you're trying to write a story. They're real ideas. They are serious things. Analyze them and really think, okay, this is a scene that you could have in a book, movie, any sort of media. Most importantly, in a story, right? And so you want to be thinking of those scenes and have a couple of them. And even if the parts of the story seem like they're so distantly far apart they could never work together, you haven't made the characters yet. You haven't made the story yet. You're just thinking of different, like, things happening. And with enough of them, you can sort of look at them and piece them together, right? And that's when my next step kicks in. I'll do that with the next video. The next video will be titled Define, or the tip will be titled Define, right? So we have think and then define. So for now, think. So in the comments, if you want to, if you feel comfortable with it, go into the comments and just give me a sort of media that you can take inspiration from, or that you have taken inspiration from, and just come up with an idea for it. I'd love to maybe look at the media, if it's like a movie, or listen to it if it's a song. I highly recommend songs. I listen to songs and get inspiration from them all the time. Yeah, just a quick rundown of what I said. Use inspirations. Don't be scared to let other people inspire your ideas. Come up with scenes of a story first. Just little sequences here and there. I listed off a few examples of songs that I just pulled ideas from. And then don't be afraid to be silly. You know, the scenes might sound dumb on their own, but don't think of them as dumb scenes. Think of them as puzzle pieces almost that you need to just put together. And once they're together, they make a bigger image that is much more pleasing to look at. And that will be what we are talking about next in our define. So, thank you. Feel free to go down to the comments. Tell me anything that you can come up with for inspiration of maybe an idea of a scene or a sequence of events or even a character. Just any of that. Give me some sort of inspiration. Think of it like a little bit of homework. That's all I've got. So, thank you for listening to this tip, and I will see you in the next tip video of Define.